in terms of their balance sheets. The S&P 500 Information Tech Index was up nearly 1.7% today. Overall, in the market, positive with the Dow gaining 0.2%. The overall S&P up 0.3%. NASDAQ comp today higher by 1%. We had yields moving lower across the curve at the short end. The 2-year was down 14 basis points. Right now, we're last quoted at 383, so that's where the trading will begin in Tokyo in about an hour and 38 minutes from now. Dollar weakness today, and the yen that is likely a little bit stronger here at 130.90 against the greenback. We'll take another look at markets in 15 minutes. Let's get to Ed Baxter next for a look at global news headlines. Eddie.
All right, thank you very much, Douglas. TikTok's CEO Shou Chew in front of a very hostile group of lawmakers today on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. Joining us is Bloomberg social media reporter Alex Barenka. Alex, thank you so much. Quite a day. You have a whole lot of experience covering this stuff. You've covered a number of hearings. I'm thinking of Zuckerberg that got a little bit contentious. Have you ever seen anything, before we get to the nuts and bolts, have you ever seen anything like this before?
This was, and I was in the room today during this hearing, this was one of the most kind of spicy hearings that I have ever seen. There were a number of opportunities that Shou Chew, the CEO of TikTok, tried to answer questions, was cut off by the chairwoman saying TikTok's time is up. He was reminded that he is under oath, something that we don't see as often, even in some of the past hearings where tech CEOs have faced tough questions. These tough questions came with a little bit of an edge of contentiousness that we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah, now, Shou said to the nuts and bolts, operations that we move to the U.S. will be under control of U.S. law. That was just met with doubt, wasn't it?
Absolutely, from the get-go. Basically in the opening statements, Chairwoman Kathy McMorris Rodgers started it by saying we aren't buying it. TikTok had come into this and had laid out basically their plan to address data security concerns. They pointed to a lot of their moderation and safety policies when it comes to user safety. Those are kind of the two big buckets that were expected to be addressed today, and they were. But the information that CEO Shou Chew provided was met with basically a lack of trust, and it didn't really land. There was a quote, there's a moment from Democratic Representative Lisa Blunt Rochester of Delaware that I think sums it up so well. She said,
We're cutting out. Let's give you a chance, your phone a chance to breathe here for just a second. Let me ask a question. China came out with a statement saying that it would firmly oppose any sale of TikTok forced by Washington. So he was facing a headwind going on, saying that there was separation, wasn't he?
He was, and can you hear me a little bit better now?
Yeah, that's great.
Beautiful. And that kind of set the scene for this, right? He was coming in trying to explain how TikTok is separate from China and separate from China through its parent company, which is a Chinese tech company. It basically, before the hearing even started, kind of undermined anything that he was going to say on that front. The first 20 or so minutes, there were a number of lawmakers that were really pressing him on any kind of connection to China they could make. Everything from who have you gotten prep from for this hearing, who have you gotten advice from, anyone from China, to have you actually spoken with any members of the Chinese Communist Party. Chew's answers were, my team in D.C. has prepped me, I haven't talked to them, but any kind of connection as direct or oblique as possible. It seemed like the lawmakers were trying to kind of ferret it out to back up some of these concerns around the Chinese influence that they see could be held over this app.
So, Alex, coming out of this, really, I see three options. Correct me if I'm wrong. I see a ban, a sale, or Commerce Department control. Are they talking about all three, or where do you see this going?
Right now, they're talking about all three, and while we were in this hearing in the House committee, we were getting notes from senators who have proposed bills, so it seems like there's a lot of bipartisan support in Congress. Obviously, there's still that national security review in the background, but the thing I will flag, the best case scenario kind of at this point for TikTok is kind of time and misalignment when it comes to passing legislation. So while it seems like kind of the situation is pretty dire. While I would say they are not walking out of this unscathed, if anything, they are worse off than when this morning started before the hearing. It will be some time, even if, a big if, there is legislation that ultimately gets signed by the president.
This is Bloomberg Daybreak Asia. I'm Brian Curtis, along with Paul Allen. This is Bloomberg.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 1061 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
It is 6:27 Friday morning in Hong Kong, 9:27 here in Sydney. I'm Paul Allen.
And I'm Brian Curtis, looking at markets that appear to be mixed as in terms of how we might be heading today. Nikkei futures are at 27,155, and we closed at 27,419 yesterday, so a little bit of a downward push there. Right now we've got the dollar weaker, so it's a mixed bag of sorts. We'll get to the markets coming up with Doug Krisner, but for now, some of the top stories.
We've got a tech giant now going to Hollywood that looks to spend big money on movies that'll be released in theaters. We've got more from Bloomberg's Tom Busby.
Apple planning to spend upwards of $1 billion a year to produce movies that it'll release in thousands of theaters, at least for a month, as it looks to raise its profile in Hollywood and drive audience members to its Apple TV Plus streaming service, which has fewer subscribers than rivals like Netflix and Disney Plus. Apple has already approached several Hollywood studios about partnering on films, including director Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, and Ridley Scott's biopic, Napoleon. I'm Tom Busby, Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Toshiba has accepted a buyout offer from a Japanese consortium. The company said its board approved a bid of about $15.3 billion from a group led by domestic private equity firm Japan Industrial Partners. The deal could help bring down the curtain on years of turbulence for Toshiba after a series of scandals. The offer is about a 10% premium to Toshiba's closing price on Thursday. As the next step, Toshiba said a tender offer is expected to start in late July, with the exact schedule to be announced later.
Swiss National Bank President Thomas Jordan says a spin-off of Credit Suisse's domestic universal bank is not on the table right now. Earlier this week, shareholder Ethos Foundation asked Swiss authorities and UBS to explore a possible separation and listing of Credit Suisse's Swiss unit. It cited concerns about excessive market concentration, competition, and job cuts. Jordan also said that winding down Credit Suisse would have exacerbated the banking crisis and that there was a need to find a solution on Sunday before markets are reopened. He added that it's absolutely essential that UBS's takeover of Credit Suisse now takes place in a smooth way. And I thought we were going to hear from Mr. Jordan there, but separately, officials at the Swiss National Bank raised its benchmark interest rate by 0.5 point, said there might be more hikes to come. The move signaling that concerns about inflation outweighed any concerns after the market reaction to Sunday's Credit Suisse deal. Brian.
Yeah, Thomas probably just headed out to get a cup of coffee. I mean, when you're the president of the Swiss National Bank, you've got your hands full for sure. All right, the time here is about 30 minutes past the hour. Let's get over to Doug Krisner. So, Doug, I ran some numbers by you before. I've got some more for you. The yield on the 10-year, 3.43%. The 5-year, 3.43%. The 3-year, 362. The 2-year, 383. Only 40 basis points separates the yield on those four. U.S. Treasury.
Well, if you look at what the swaps market is telling us right now, Brian, the bet here is that the Fed funds target by the end of the year will be about 75 basis points below where we are right now. So despite what we heard yesterday from the Fed chairman, the market is looking at rate cuts. Let's get to global news next here on Daybreak Asia. Ed Baxter is in the Bloomberg newsroom in San Francisco. Ed?
All right, Douglas, thank you. China's saying any sale of TikTok in the U.S. will have to be approved by Beijing. This coming out of the hearings today on Capitol Hill, with CEO Shou Chu saying control of TikTok will be based in the United States.
We have legacy U.S. data sitting in our servers in Virginia and in Singapore. We're deleting those, and we expect that to be complete this year. When that is done, all protected U.S. data will be under the protection of U.S. law, and under the control of the U.S.-led security team.
But the constant congressional questioning seemed to be full of doubt. Congresswoman Kathy Rogers.
TikTok is a weapon by the Chinese Communist Party to spy on you, manipulate what you see, and exploit for future generations.
And Henrietta Trey's Veda Partners on Bloomberg earlier said mistrust is definitely warranted.
China and the People's Republic of China and the CCP are the ones who are going to have some authority and oversight here. When he says, I wouldn't call this spying, that does not go over well. That was a huge misstep, I would say, on the part of the CEO, and they have to deal with that issue in a more earnest way.
Republican Senator Marco Rubio says the only path is sale, and Democrat Ro Khanna agrees.
He needs to sell the company. I mean, it is outrageous that we have a company that may have influence with the Chinese Communist Party. That is unacceptable.
Yeah, so coming out of this, a legislator speaking out say either sale or regulation by the Commerce Committee for all social media. Now, there's another tentacle, and that is politics. Bloomberg's Alex Barinka says fine line, especially for Democrats.
That voter base, that under 30 voter base that came out really strong for Democrats in the last midterm election is one in particular that you should keep a close eye on, particularly as news of this kind of hearing where the TikTok CEO is basically falling flat gets splashed across kind of the public consciousness. I expect we might start hearing some pushback from young voters.
Yeah, and Alex agrees that this hearing today was more than just about TikTok, but could be the beginning of a much larger look at social media. And I want to go on just a lighter note, partly personal. The U.S. fastest growing sport is coming to the United States, coming to, New York.
Pickleball, it's coming to New York City. It's taking over the Woolman Rink, the Central Park complex. It's installing 14 pickleball courts for 6 months, starting April 7th. 14? It's going to cost you $120 an hour to play during peak times, but off-peak...
An hour?
An hour, but $80 off-peak.
An hour? Yeah, I'll give lessons for maybe $3,000 an hour. Bloomberg's Katie Greifeld and Romaine Bostic. Good luck, guys. Global News, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. In San Francisco, I'm Ed Baxter, and this is Bloomberg. All right, Paul.
Thanks, Ed. I just had to quickly Google pickleball. I'd never heard of it. And, okay. All right. I'll be interested to see if it takes off in Australia. We've already got our own weird variant of football that the rest of the world doesn't understand. But maybe pickleball could be added to the pantheon. Brian, do you play?
No, but I know Ed does. He's long been a proponent. And in fact, one of the worst periods of his life was when he had to have his shoulder operated on. He couldn't play for a while.
Oh, no, forced into retirement. A tragedy for the pickleball sport of pickleball. All right, we've got market opening in Australia in a little while. Futures pointing to weakness.
Bloomberg 1130 brings you the names that move markets. Citigroup CEO Jane Fraser.
This is not a credit crisis. This is a situation where it's a few banks.
ARK Investment CEO Kathy Wood.
The banking system is fearing deflation.
Former Morgan Stanley CEO John Mack.
I think most of these banks are going to be much more conservative in the risk they take.
The names that matter. The news you need. Bloomberg 1130, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com.
Interactive Brokers clients earn interest of up to 4.08% on the uninvested cash in their brokerage accounts. That's just one of the many reasons clients use Interactive Brokers to trade stocks, options, futures, currencies, bonds, funds, and more. Rates subject to change. Visit ibkr.com/interest rates to learn more. That's ibkr.com/interest rates.
The following conversation brought to you by OmegaTaxCredits.com.
I thought I couldn't get the employee retention plan if I got the PPC loan.
Nope.
I thought it was really difficult to apply for the ERC.
Not if you use Omega Accounting Solutions. See, Omega has been around for more than 15 years. They are an established firm with extensive experience handling tax credits and will build a fiduciary relationship with you and your business.
But I'm sure it takes forever to find out if you qualify, though, right?
Again, no. If you call 800-300-9ERC, ERC, you could find out in under 10 minutes.
I make a call that takes less than 10 minutes, and I can find out if my company is eligible to receive a tax credit for up to $26,000 per employee?
Yes, based on how your small business was impacted by government mandates or lost revenue during the COVID crisis.
Call Omega Accounting at 800-300-9ERC, and in 10 minutes, find out if your company qualifies for an employee retention credit for up to $26,000 per employee. That's 800-300-9372.
Returning to Doha in May, the Qatar Economic Forum, powered by Bloomberg, is leading the charge for resilient global growth in a post-pandemic world. Join voices who are spotlighting solutions to some of our most pressing economic challenges and leading the conversations to put consumers and technology at the forefront. Hear from business